Fear is a fantastic tool to use in both video games and storytelling. Fear can act as a warning, telling the player to avoid a certain area or that something is wrong about the situation. The sense of fear is an obstacle to overcome, and something to challenge not the player's skill, but their mindset and courage. Anyways, just before this video begins, I just have a few things I'd like to say. First of all, I'd just like to say that I do have a Discord server. It's a really chill place to hang out and I'm pretty active in there, so if you want to chat or maybe suggest some video ideas, it'd be wonderful if you could join. Secondly, we just hit 9,000 subscribers. I honestly never thought I'd get here and I just really wanted to thank you all from the bottom of my heart. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's continue this intro. Don't Starve uses Fear excellently, with it having two prominent types that it uses to build both the world and gameplay around you, as well as the story around it. In this video, we'll be covering both ambient-based fear and gameplay-based fear, and what they do to drive the main narrative from within the game. This video will be split into two parts, each discussing the two different types of fear, how both types of fear are used, and what the game does to convey them. So, with that being said, let's start off with ambient-based fear. Ambient-based fear is exactly what it sounds like. Things which don't have an inherent impact on the gameplay, but more so on the player and their emotions. Take for example, ambient noise. There are many different types of ambient noise, and interestingly, it often changes. As a not so scary example, seasons change biome noises incredibly subtly. As an example, here's the swamp in all 4 different seasons. A key feature of Don't Starve which sets it apart from most survival games is its sanity mechanic, which really switches up the game. From the visuals to certain mobs, and more importantly to this section, its ambience and sound effects. Here, have a listen. This noise starts to play at less than 50% sanity and only continues to get worse the lower your sanity percentage goes. At less than 45%, voices and whispering can be heard. And finally, at less than 15% sanity, the day and night jingle will be heavily distorted. The sounds get more and more intense with each level of insanity and can be really disorienting and odd if it's your first time going insane in this game, as the sounds you know and love get changed very slightly with each level, eventually becoming a distorted mess. The distortion pretty much acts as a sort of, okay pal, what you're doing is not good, keep the brain bar up and things will go back to normal. But it's not just audio that changes with sanity. There's another very subtle and light change. The visuals. Don't Starve visuals are already bleak and desaturated, so the complete contrast it has from when you're fully sane and when you aren't is very in your face. At less than 80% sanity, you'll see this little shadow creature known as Mr. Skits randomly around your field of vision. at less than 75% sanity is where things really start adding up. It's at this point where the world begins desaturating slightly, night hands appear in the night, which may I add is terrifying if you've just started playing, and lastly, the screen itself begins to shake very slightly at this stage. This is interesting because it's at this point where the player would notice that something is up. The subtle changes are just enough to both be in your face and not really be that obvious at the same time. But as sanity drops, it only gets more intense and more noticeable. At less than 60% sanity, eyes will appear in the dark watching you, and the screen starts getting distorted along with the shaking. The lighting of the world itself is once again desaturated but brightened within the ruins. Taking a big jump from 60% going to less than 15% sanity, the screen becomes surrounded by red tendrils and the screen distorts even more. And lastly, at less than 10% sanity, the screen distorts even more for the final time, and almost all color is stripped from the world. Once again, this very in-your-face, quote, something is wrong, is the game trying to scare you to keep your sanity high. Keeping your sanity low only makes it harder, and this usage of, oh crap, what's happening to my screen, this isn't good, is what makes it so impactful. This is mostly just me talking about sanity, but that's not all there is when it comes to showing ambience. There are, of course, the set pieces in this game, namely the failed survivors. When you get into Don't Starve, you're most likely already aware of how difficult the game is. The failed survivors both act as free loot, and as a very in-your-face warning that, yeah, you're probably gonna die. What's also interesting is that this shows us that we aren't the first human or player to be in these worlds, which I think is just fantastic game design overall, as it shows the player that they aren't anything special and that they too can and probably will die. It also acts as motivation. All this death we see around us makes us in turn not want to die. Well, you know, not want to die even more than we already don't. Anyways, enough of that. I think we should get into character quotes now, shall we? The characters in Don't Starve really show off their personality and mindset with the quotes that they have in the game. If you've watched my Why Don't Starve is Hopeless video, then this part might seem pretty familiar. I mean, I could just show a clip of that video, but that's pretty boring, so I'm gonna remaster it with a few tweaks and improvements. Enjoy! When it comes to characters and quotes in the game, here are by far some of the worst out there. When you try to kill Maxwell when he's on the Nightmare Throne, he says, "The throne won't allow that. I've tried." When Wendy examines lava pools, she says, "I could just jump into that and be done." She also says another pretty depressing quote when examining ropes, saying that it would be the easy way out of here. When Wilson digs up a grave, he makes it a point to say that he should probably feel bad about that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. These quotes are great because they actually show us how characters think and feel. Take Maxwell's quote for example, supposed to be the king of the world, reduced to practically nothing, and attempting to off himself as a way to escape. Same with Wendy. Her sense of despair has fully taken hold of her thoughts, and her way of escape is by jumping into a lava pool. It also shows certain characters' descent into madness, as well as being desensitized to things which are disgusting. Take Wilson for example, who has literally no qualms with digging up human remains. There's many more examples I could have chosen, but these are the main ones. Character quotes in this game are fantastic, as they give us insight into how characters think and feel. Not strictly ambiance per se, but definitely something that adds onto the atmosphere of this game. Oh wait, Don't Starve's a game! That means it doesn't only have ambient fear, it also has... Yeah, did you like the transition? It's pretty cool. The beginning of the game is honestly terrifying, especially since you don't know what to expect. I mean, this game is brutal for new players. It throws you straight in with no help and expects you to pick up random bits of knowledge whilst dying or wasting time over and over again. The fear of death is already something you're most likely going to be feeling when entering the game. But if it's your first time playing, you're probably making some pretty stupid mistakes like getting hit. Well, you know, that's no big deal, I'll just get my health back so I don't die in a single hit. Oh crap, how do I get my health back up? Well, not a very big issue for more experienced players, Getting your health back up is a total mystery to new players. More common foods like berries literally heal nothing, and the only other common food they'd have is carrots or petals, which only heal 1. Honestly though, if you're just trying to survive the first day of this game, there's much worse things out there than just not being able to heal. Introducing the first night. It's pretty much Don't Starve tradition at this point for new players to either die or get very close to dying by their first night. Night in Don't Starve turns the screen pitch black. You literally can't see anything if you don't have a torch, and if you happen to stay shrouded within the darkness for too long, you'll hear the piercing sound of a screech before your character gets hit for a ton of damage, and losing half their sanity. The use of sound design and visuals, or more so, lack thereof, makes the first night seriously scary. The ambience is used perfectly to create a real sense of dread, and I personally still panic like crazy whenever I run out of lights, pretty much begging that I'll be able to survive enough hits until daytime rolls around. Anyways, I think I've talked about the world and gameplay experience itself a bit too much, so let's talk about something else in this game which shows fear. That being the monsters. With how sanity in this game works, it's made pretty clear that the larger the drain of sanity, the scarier mob is, and the sooner you should get out of there. Take a spider for instance, only draining 25 sanity a minute compared to Deerclops draining 400 a minute. The tougher, scarier, and well, more unnatural a mob is, the more sanity it ends up draining. This sanity drain is a great indication of which mobs can be easily killed, and which ones can easily kill you. Speaking of mobs that can easily kill you, their art style is a massive indicator for that. For the most part, enemies with more attack and health often have messier designs that look more disheveled, with darker colors that really indicate their hostile nature. Take pigmen for example, normally looking quite scary still, which implies their neutral nature, but looking much scarier when becoming werepigs, which, I mean, their appearance would change when they transform. But the way that werepigs behave, look, and more importantly, now drain your sanity, show the increase in hostility compared to the regular old pigman. It's pretty much the game's equivalent to real-life animals that have a ton of crazy colors on them, acting as a sort of warning sign. The more colorful an animal is, the more dangerous it is, and in Don't Starve, the bigger its negative sanity aura is, the more dangerous the creature is. Well, you know, for the most part at least. And lastly, concerning mobs, let's talk about something pretty simple actually. Hound attacks. Okay, it's not only hound attacks, but you get the idea. Boss encounters, hound attacks, and to an extent, deathworm waves act as semi-random events to keep the player on their toes at all times. I personally love how this works. The first hound attack appears about a week in or so, and due to your character yelling out a specific quote for when they appear, you'll know that something's up. Sometimes not exactly, but you will know. The following day, 3 or 4 hounds spawn and swarm you, forcing you to fight or run away from them. This is practically the game telling you that even once you've settled down and gotten used to the environment around you, the world itself still isn't safe. It's made quite clear that with every wave, the number of hounds increase, so this is the game's way of telling you that if you don't explore or find new ways to counter the hounds, they will kill you. The seasonal bosses take this up to the extreme, with many Don't Starve players sharing the pain of finally making it to winter, only to be killed by this massive deer thing. The first Deerclops encounter is terrifying, since Deerclops spawns during the night, approaches you, and then proceeds to thrash both you and your base. It's a pretty unfair fight for new players and stands as a pretty big challenge to overcome. It also shows you that you're not as good as you probably think you are. Oh, you think you're good with kiting? Yeah, well, you know what, here. Take this new boss that you've never seen before, and take this new kiting pattern that you've never learned before, loser. Honestly, I think the way Clay handled the build-up for Deerclops' spawn, only to then do it in every single season, was both a good and a bad move. Good, because it lets players know that winter isn't the only dangerous season with its own boss, but that all the seasons do. and bad because none of the other encounters really capture the terror that the first Deerclops encounter has. I mean, don't get me wrong, the seasonal bosses are terrifying, but it's nothing compared to that first encounter. Alright, I've talked way too much already, so let's wrap this video up, shall we? Honestly, I love the way that Don't Starve tries to scare its player. Most times are to try and get you away from something, but that thing could be a boss that drops amazing loot, or a warning for what's to inevitably come. It uses fear to teach the player to be cautious, complacent, and yet brave, as well as overcoming whatever the game throws at them. It uses the player's fear as a sort of twisted guide that helps them progress if they're willing to push themselves, and I love it. Anyways, with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Honestly, this video was on the back burner for ages, and this script was left unfinished for 3 months. So I hope the video didn't feel any different halfway through or anything, and you know, hopefully the video actually ends up existing. Anyways, with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. See ya! Oh my god, my voice is killing me.